Yo, welcome everybody. You're listening and or watching the Snapcast podcast. We're here live. Your hosts, Brad O'Brien and Mike Cooley. Give him a good old nod. Tell him what's up, Brad. Yeah. Vocal accompaniment on our intro song today. Dude, we've got some cool stuff happening here today. We've got a good old deep dive is how we're going to start this up. We've been talking about doing it for a while and just kind of going into one topic and just diving in. And we're going to do that this week. And then later on, we've got a really special guest that we're going to have dial in via phone, because ain't nobody trying to break this rule of social distancing, right? I think technically, from what I hear, with all this COVID-19 stuff going on, you're not supposed to go anywhere with more than one person in the car or something like that now. Is that,
Really?
Am I making stuff up, or is that, have you heard something about this?
I think you might be making stuff up about that, but it's pretty close. I mean, you're only supposed to be traveling with people that you've already spent time with, that you know where they've been, family. It's getting pretty crazy. Fortunately, we are sanitizing effectively.
That's right.
I was in quarantine for 6 days, and then this bastard showed up. And I guess we're going to do a podcast.
I don't even knock anymore, but this time, this guy was out on a walk, man. Just walking around town, trying to pick up the virus or something. Or staying healthy.
Spread the podcast, not the virus. It was 50 degrees out this afternoon.
Man, it was really crazy. We got a snowstorm the other day, too. We got I shit you not, we woke up, there was 8 inches of snow all over everything. And then by the end of the day, it was just all melted away. There's a saying that says, if you don't like the weather in Maine, just wait 5 minutes and it'll change. That has definitely been true.
8 inches of snow on Tuesday, 50 degrees on Thursday.
Yep.
Yeah.
Chilling out there. I contemplated not even wearing this showing up today. I was just like, it's fucking warm enough, man. Just show right up. But yeah, so we're here. We're doing it. Let's just dive right in. And I mean deep dive right in. We got a special thing. I was really contemplating this week, okay? And I'm happy that Brad was like, yeah, let's do a deep dive on this. Here's the guiding question. I'd love to hear from you guys about what your thoughts are. But here it is. Are Creatures Toolbox decks, or those types of variants, dead now that Once Upon a Time is gone? What is their future? Are they dead? Are they not good anymore? Are they tier 2, tier 1.5? Will they never really be great? What do you think?
So when I think of Once Upon a Time, I think about more combo. I want a specific creature. Not necessarily Creature Toolbox. When I think Creature Toolbox, I think the tutors that let you go and get that one creature that's going to be the bomb diggity in the matchup. So Once Upon a Time is certainly a high value card. It ensures that you get the start to the game that you want, but it's trying to get a 4 of in your deck. Mm. So I don't know. I think maybe the Creature Toolbox lives.
So here's my theory on it, right? And I'm hoping by the time I get done running my mouth, maybe I convince at least one person, right? My answer is Creature Toolbox decks are not dead. They're just using the wrong cards. There are cards out there that have fallen out of favor in these decks for whatever damn reason. I don't understand it, but they're so good and people aren't using them. So, and I shouldn't say people. Some people are using them. Some of the really smart players out there are using them. But a lot of the decks that you see show up on MTG Top 8 for Heliod Life and all of these, Counters Company and Heliod Company, whatever they want to call them, they kind of all run some of the same cards. Now, one of the cards that has replaced, I guess you could say, Once Upon a Time in a lot of these builds is Eladamri's Call. And if you guys aren't familiar with that, it's probably one of the best tutors that exists in Modern, I would say. For $2.50, it's pretty sweet. It's just 1 green, 1 white, and it's speed of an instant. Search your library for a creature card and put it in your hand. It's pretty sweet. It doesn't just go to the top of your deck. It goes right in your hand. So a lot of decks are running that right now in place of the Once Upon a Time, which makes sense based on what you said, because you're typically just looking for a piece or you're looking for an answer if you're kind of toolboxy. It really makes a lot of sense, right? Like you look at that card, it makes sense. You're like, yep, that's an okay replacement for Once Upon a Time. But my theory is that Once Upon a Time was really good in those decks, mainly for the fact that you are jamming 4 of them, and there's a really good chance that in your opening hand, you're gonna get a Once Upon a Time. And with a lot of these decks, it isn't that you're going for a combo piece with these. And I think this is where the confusion has come in, right? Like, you're not going for a combo piece a lot of times. With these decks, you just want a solid start. Like, your deck can carry you. You know what I mean? You just want a solid start, enough to like get ahead of your opponent. Slam a turn 1 dork, or, you know, have some sort of answer to what you know they might be playing, or, you know, on turn 1, or by the very least, just dig for the right color land. You know what I mean? Oh shit, I'm playing against burn. Like, I gotta dig for a basic, or I gotta dig for a fetch, you know, that can fetch the right type of basic. You know what I mean? So I think that made Once Upon a Time really, really good in these decks.
Can we get Once Upon a Time stink out of your mouth now? Because it's been banned.
Yep. But hey, we didn't not expect that one, right? Like, I mean, it was
really fun
good.
while it lasted.
Yep, for sure. But,
that's what she said.
Hey, but another thing is, why wasn't this a conversation then before Once Upon a Time was even a thing, right? Like, where were these, you know, creature toolbox decks? They had kind of fallen out of favor anyway.
So define toolbox deck to me.
So, okay, this is what I guess I'm talking about when I say that. I'm talking about currently, in the current metagame here on March 26th, 2020, all of the decks that run combos in them and also creatures that are pretty valuable. So, like, this would count probably your Heliod combo, like your Heliod Life decks. It would count your Devoted Druid Vizier combo decks with, like, Walking Ballista for a finish. Any decks that are probably running those styles of combos, along with, and I guess I shouldn't even restrict it there, because there could be other cool shit that you just run and you're trying to toolbox your deck, right? Like, you could just run main deck, the Knight, not Knight of the Reliquary, but
Knight of Autumn.
Knight of Autumn, yep. You could be running him. You could be running multiple variants of a combo, like cards that combo with other combo cards that aren't the original combo, such as, you know, Heliod and Finks, like, you know, versus Heliod and Spike
Feeder,
like, you know,
or Archangel.
Exactly. Like, all of them are cool cards, but when you get them together with certain other cards, they kind of combo off. So I guess that's like, it might not be a very helpful or narrow definition, but it's like, I hope you get what I'm talking about. Like, those style decks.
We're not putting a list up on the screen that says, you know, we're talking about, most of the time these are Noble Hierarch decks. Mm-hmm. They're probably Collected Company decks.
Absolutely.
All value creatures that have some impact when they enter the battlefield. Like you said, a Knight of Autumn or a Deputy of Detention. I bet a lot of these decks run those sort of things.
Yep, some of them are.
We're talking about green-based, white.
Yep, green-white predominantly. Sometimes they splash in black, sometimes other colors, but green-white decks is a very good way to put it. You know, so, but we hope you understand what we're talking about. Like, those style decks, right? So, this is what I've seen. Okay? After digging and doing all my research, I've seen certain builds and certain things that they run.
And sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but no. I know that you put in a very diligent testing protocol.
I did.
So you can probably intuit that Mike has a deck he's excited about, and we're going to talk about the process of how he got there. But what was your testing process?
Oh man, why don't we just start there? Why don't we just start from the beginning? Why the hell am I even? Let's just tell you really why we're here, right? I suck at Modern, and I got a Stony Silence slammed on me, okay, with the artifact deck that I just put together and was jamming, and it didn't feel good.
That's like the story of your life in Magic, though, in a nutshell.
Pretty much. Like,
Stony Silence has ruined a lot of your days in Magic.
it has, but I played Affinity for the longest time, and I was always like, it's not an end-all, be-all. Like, you know, a lot of times people will keep a hand with Stony Silence in it, nothing to back it up, and it's like, wrong move, buddy. Like, you know, very few times is that end your game if you're playing like the traditional Affinity or whatnot, assuming you know how to prepare for it and you know what's going on. But this time, I was prepared for it. I knew it was probably coming. And I was like, yeah, man, sweet. I got Planeswalkers. I got Ugins. I got Karn, the Great Creator. Fuck your, you know, Stony Silence. It absolutely wrecked me. It was like the worst feeling. All of my mana rocks were artifacts that I was trying to ramp up into these nasty spells with. And like, I couldn't use my map to go get my Tron lands. And I was like, this...
Hosed.
I was like, I am completely hosed in this deck by Stony Silence. So,
And it was a legit old school Stony Silence.
oh yeah.
Not like Collector Oath.
No, straight
Or a Karn.
Straight old school, like, you know, it didn't feel good. So in that moment, I was like, I need another deck. Like, I love this deck. I could play it all day. For the people that don't run Stony Silence effects, you're going to get punished hard. But the people that do, it's like, God damn it. Like, there's literally nothing I can do. And it was such a helpless feeling. Have you guys ever been there? Have you ever had something happen like that with one of your cool pet decks that you're just like, you get a card slammed on you and you're like, damn it. Shit. Like, that was how I felt. But, so anyways, I started looking at all these other cool decks, looking at what decks I could possibly build because I'm like, you know what, I need something else. And then I was like, well, Brad and I just spec'd on all these damn Heliod's over here. I might as well make a deck that includes Heliod to some degree, right? So I'm digging around. I'm looking at, like, you know, all of these green-white toolbox variants decks, and I see this one, right? It got me all fired up at first. It was hardened Heliod, and it was basically hardened scale, so it was like half Affinity, half Heliod combo. And I was so pumped. I was like, Spike Feeder has 1/1 counters, and Arcbound Ravager, of course. Like, you know, it runs the walk and
where I thought
ballista.
this was going.
I was like, oh, this is so... I know, man.
I thought Thassa was getting wet, so Heliod got hard. Welcome to your PG-13 podcast.
The magic porn over here. This is... God, that is a really provocative name. Hardened Heliod.
So... that deck got you excited.
Man, I was so pumped about it, and then I started this diligent testing process, right? And let me finish how I feel about that deck before I go on and tell you what I did. I hate it. It's a dumb deck. It is not good. Like, never have I played a deck where I hated drawing Arcbound Ravager so much, which is theoretically the best card in the deck. You know what I mean?
That was definitely your mindset from a lifetime of playing Affinity decks.
Yep.
You love Ravager.
If you're gonna play Arcbound Ravager, it had better be the best card in your deck. I mean, that's just the world I live in. But yeah, it was terrible. This is what I did, man. And criticize all you want, but I got my reasons. Okay, I did this old school style in this whole quarantine shit that we got going on right now. Right, I took 2 decks myself. Okay, I put them on a table and played them.
Heads up, 1-player Magic.
Yeah, sure.
Can if all information were known between the two, can one beat the other?
Right, exactly, man. Like, you know.
So what was your test deck?
So this was, I ran Burn, right, and I ran it because it is one of, if not the most played deck in the format, depending on how you look at it. There's a few variants of like red decks, but like mono red wins or red deck wins is like one of the top played decks, and it includes kind of 2 variants. You got your Burn, and then you got your prowess deck wins. But between those 2 decks, red is going to be a pretty big color that you're playing against. So I figured, if you can't beat this deck, it's not the best deck in the format, I wouldn't say, but it is a very, very common one. And if you can't beat this one, then you shouldn't run the deck. Like, you know, it's kind of speaks for, you know, its speed and its resilience. Like, if this creature toolboxy deck that I'm trying to build can't beat Burn, then like you just reconsider your deck choice at that point.
I definitely think that is a great bar. and I don't mean this in any negative way towards burn, but burn is a great floor for the format. Like if you can't beat a burn deck, like if you straight up just can't, you're never going to beat burn, it's not a modern worthy deck.
Right.
Like that sets a baseline. Before you leave tonight, maybe we'll Lysol humans and I'll send humans with you.
Oh, man. I would love to do that.
And you can run your tests again.
I would love to. So this is how we set it up, right? It was, I always kind of gave burn the benefit of the doubt, mainly because I didn't want to like waste my time pissing through these games and get some cheap wins when it was like when burn was mana screwed or something. So I always made it so that like burn could not get mana screwed. Like, you know, you could go a couple of turns without drawing a land, but eventually you're just like, all right, man, like if this continues, this game's over, you know, for the worst. So I would always kind of like cheat the land to the top and be like, okay, like burn draws a land here or something. So like just minimal intervention to make sure that like it's always kind of playing consistently. And like I just jammed games. Burn always went first. Like that was another crucial thing.
Can you
like,
beat it when you're on the draw? Sure.
Exactly. Like it's always going first. So you know worst case scenario, like how you really stack up and how it really stacks up against this variant. That friggin' hardened Heliod. Very provocative deck name. Got trashed. I mean, trashed by burn.
Trashed.
I mean, trashed. Like, if Waldo was here, he'd take the whole deck and throw it in the trash. That's what he would do. It was so bad. Like, I played 9 games with that variant just back to back, and it was Burn always going first. And mind you, Burn had perfect information. You know, so did I guess, but Burn is so redundant that it's like your perfect information doesn't really matter. You should always be assuming these things anyway. But, like, just trashed it. I mean, it went 0 wins, 9 losses in those you know games against Burn.
Next.
Yep, exactly. I was so fired up about the deck, but I just remember drawing Arcbound Ravager, and it was like, this is the worst draw I could possibly have. Like, and
Deck
it should
was
be the
limp.
best. Yeah.
Could
It
not
was-
perform.
Hardened Heliod is very misleading. It was a very limp deck. That's a great way to put it.
Limp deck syndrome.
Limp deck.
So what happened after that? Where'd you go
So
from there?
I was like, you know what? Screw this, man. I'm going to look at, I got all these Heliods. I want to jam them in a deck. So I found a Spike Feeder variant, right? Like I'm sorry, it was all base, like 4 Spike Feeders, 4 Heliods, and just build a kind of a creature toolbox deck around that. And I was like, yep, that seems good. Let's do it. Also trashed by Burn. Not going to lie. Like, it was, I swear, it was not that I was a bad player, okay? I'm equally as bad at Burn as I am
So,
at Creature's Toolbox.
You've been through 2 of these, you know, and these are lists that you're not just brewing off the top of your head. You've got this idea, and you're going out and looking for lists, right?
Exactly. Like, I'm going on MTG Top 8 and looking at top finishing decks. You know, and in the second version, I had this card that we talked about, the Ella Damry's Call. You know, I was like, this is really great. You can tutor for your combo piece. You can do that on their turn. You know, it's really good. I was like, this is an awesome replacement for Once Upon a Time. I absolutely never liked drawing it, just because it was like, okay, now I have to wait to your turn, and what I'm going to do is not going to interact at all with what you're doing, and it felt so bad. I was like, I'm just a sitting duck, and I'm only bluffing. Like, if this was a real match, I'm just bluffing that I have something. Burn is gonna call your bluff, and you're just gonna get trashed on. So that one did slightly better than the hardened scales. I got 2 wins with 9 losses as well, but still mainly got trashed on.
So at this point, I have to ask, you're looking for another deck. Why not play Burn?
I'm not gonna lie, man. That crossed my mind. I was like, yeah, so I guess I'm just running Burn, right? Like, I'm just gonna take this to
Because
the
you're
shop.
crushing it.
Yeah, I was like, this is really good. But I was, you know,
Got a lot of reps in.
I came too far at that point. I came too far. I was like, I want to play these Heliods, right? Like, I want to play this.
Brad
like,
talked me into buying these rotten cards, and I'm going to use them.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm going to prove if these are good or bad right here. So I will also say, from the second variant of that deck, I also figured out how easy it is for any given deck that may not be tailored to deal with creatures necessarily to interact with that combo with like Heliod and Spike Feeder, even when it's on the board. Like, even when you have your 2 creatures, oh, I just collected companied into this. oh, that's great. Like, I was holding up a bolt anyway. Like, you know what I mean? Oh, that's great. Go to gain the life and bolt it. Like, sure, you just gained 4 life, but you have a non-creature 5/5 enchantment that's on the battlefield, and it's not really doing shit. And if you don't have another creature, or even if you do have another creature and you plan on swinging in and giving it lifelink, they might just Searing Blaze that one too, and just be like, yep, okay, like, you know, this is just as good as dealing 3 damage now, and I'm killing your creature. Like, it was so demoralizing, like how close you could get with the deck and then still just be trashed by simple cards.
So where'd you go from here? Where'd you go from there?
So, dude, this is where I found the deck, man. I found the deck, the Creatures Toolbox deck. And let me pull it up here on my phone because I want to cite the person that made it and ran it, because I don't see many versions exactly like this. And it's so hard. I was just looking for this on my phone. I'm glad we took like 20 minutes beforehand so I could find this, because it was impossible to find. I'm like, did they take it down or something? Like, what's going on? But it was run by Michael Spartz in Regionals Minneapolis, right? And this is just a very, very cool variant of this. He ended up placing 3rd in that tournament, Regionals tournament. So not bad. You're top 8. You're doing great, right? This was a very good variant of this deck. And guess what card it didn't run?
Eladamri's Call?
That's it, man. It did not run Eladamri's Call, right? And in fact, you want to know the funny thing? You want to know the crazy thing about this? Friggin' Once Upon a Time was legal at the time he ran this deck. And he did not run Once Upon a Time.
Oh, this is spicy.
He did not run Once Upon a Time when it was legal in this deck. And that was the kicker for me. I was like, okay, so wait a minute. You mean to tell me you had a better list of cards than other people that were running Once Upon a Time in this regionals tournament? What the hell are you running? And sure as shit, man, it's the card people have seemingly forgot about in Creatures Toolbox decks, which I believe might have been one of the reasons why they started being called Creatures Toolboxes in the first place, besides Pod, right? Is friggin' Chord of Calling. Like, why didn't we think of that after Once Upon a Time got banned? Or even in this case, before it was banned. Like, Chord of Calling is so vicious. Like, in all of those games, right? So first of all, I'll tell you the results. I played 16 games with this because I really wanted to make sure. I was like, all right, let's get this right. And, like, it went 9 wins and 7 losses, which is reasonable. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Obviously, you might look at it and be like,
and
9 and 7.
all of those 16 games, you were on the draw.
Yes, I was on the draw. Like, so your burn is going first and you're still winning, 55, 56% of the time. Like, and if you did go first, the win percentage probably would go up because what you're trying to do is just get a very early advantage and, get ahead of your opponent on mana in many ways. So yeah, go for it.
I think David Doofer's just going to be super excited that you like his deck.
So is this basically exactly what he's running?
Yep.
Oh, that's cool. Doofer, you got a sick deck, man, if this is what you're running. So this deck runs 21 lands, couple of Gavany Townships, right? The classic, like, Creature Toolbox. Hey, if you're getting grinded out, like...
Just throw some counters on there.
Throw some counters on shit, man.
Beat you with birds.
Beat you with birds. Put a 1/1 counter back on my Kitchen Finks to make it so he comes back again.
Oh, man. No, I just got Heliod hard.
Speaking of Heliod.
Just one.
One Heliod in the deck. One Spike Feeder.
All right, so Doofer, comment below, because I think you run more than one Heliod.
Yes, I'm curious to know as well, because this is by far the best version I've seen personally after my anecdotal tabletop Magic testing. This is the best version I've seen, man. And at first I was like, well, why even put him in there? Like, why put Heliod and Spike Feeder in there if you're just going to run the one of them?
Break glass in case of emergency.
Man, I'm telling you, it is so good. Like, one of the worst feelings in the first 2 variants of the deck that I had was having Heliod in my hand. I was like, this is trash, especially against burn. I was like, it should be good, right? Like, this should be really good. I can give something lifelink. But if on turn 3 I'm tapping out for Heliod, I don't know if you guys know this. Burn is a vicious deck. Like, vicious. It can kill you by turn 3. Like, it is a vicious deck, man. So at that point, I'm like, this just isn't a powerful play. But you know what would be better is like a Kitchen Finks on 3 to be like, yep, okay, you got an Eidolon down there. That's fine. I don't necessarily take any damage for casting this, and now I got something to answer your Eidolon if you swing in with it. So you're slowing them down, like,
Yep.
And even if you're not playing against burn, that's just such an annoying creature, man.
Well, I think that what you're onto is what this deck has evolved to, which is it only has maybe one combo, one or two combos in it, but the whole rest of the deck is saying, I'm going to get to the point where I can combo. I'm going to survive. So 4 Kitchen Finks, 1 Heliod.
See, dude, I disagree. I think it has a lot of combos in it. Some that you might not even notice are like
it has
pretty
the
sweet.
Devoted Druid combo. It has the Heliod Spike Feeder combo. It has the Shalai thing. Ranger Captain of Eos gets sideboard cards. It gets Ballista. It gets Viscera Seer if you have a Kitchen Finks out. It has the Duskwatch Recruiter. So you're going to see a whole lot of this deck. Yeah. Chances are you can cord for Heliod if you have the other piece, or you can cord for Spike Feeder if you have the other piece.
Exactly.
Or if you have the because it is running the full 4 Devoted Druids and 4 Viziers. So it's your classic Vizier Devoted Druid combo deck.
Exactly. You know what this is really cool against, right? Other creature toolbox decks that might be on 4 Heliod for Spike Feeder. It's like, yeah, gain all the life you want. Like, we'll still get you. And guess what? We'll probably get to some cool combo before you do. You know what I mean? It's because not only do you have the Heliod Spike Feeder combo, but like what we were just talking about with Kitchen Finks, like you have that, it comes down, and even if you just have those two, that is so annoying for most decks, man. Especially aggressive decks. Like, you don't need to necessarily gain 1,000,000 life to stop your opponent. Like, if they're really aggro and they're really trying to pound you out or burn you out or whatever. You just have that down there, even against humans. And this would be good to test this. To just be like, yeah, I got a chump blocker here that's like probably going to just eat up your pumped up champion every turn. But I'm going to gain 2 life, which will probably negate the damage from another creature, all while getting another turn, which is exactly what this deck wants. It's just like, give me another turn, and I'll find something cool.
I'm a world-class salty bitch, but my games with Doofer have been some of the better games of Magic I've probably had in the last few months, because I am always biting my lip like, oh God, is this the turn that I die, or is the next turn the turn that I kill him? And it's the same thing. Like, he's playing to a top deck, and they're fun games of Magic. And I will say this is hard to play against, and judging from the amount of thought that he puts into it, it's not an easy deck to play. Hey, I just got a message. Not that message. Our special guest is ready when we are.
Oh.
Is there anything that you want to wrap up on this deep dive on Creature Toolbox?
Yes, I will say this. First of all, snap this shit up. Court of Calling. It's like $8 right now. It by far is the card that pulls this whole deck together. It allows you to go for crazy shit in this deck, like Shalai Voice of Plenty, which if you draw the game out that long, right, and you're playing against Burn or something, nothing feels better than Court of Calling into Court of Calling into a Shalai and being like, oh yeah, your Boros Charm, that's great. Court of Calling, Shalai, fizzles your Boros Charm, and guess what? Now you can't hit me with anything else until you deal with this creature. Like, that is so stupidly good to me. Like, you know what I mean? The fact that, yep, you got 1 Heliod, 1 Spike Feeder in here, you can go off, you can gain the infinite life, but if you don't, you're not dead. Like, you just have all these nasty good cards in your deck.
Oh yeah, Giver of Runes. That's another one. I would say, and we'll probably talk more about this with our guest, but with paper prices going down, I should put Giver of Runes on. That's going to be my snap this up. Really.
Top of the list, man. Yeah. Card's so good. It's like it's you get rid of it turn 1, or I know you don't have anything.
Yeah, and then I just start swinging in with the Kitchen Finks and give it pro whatever.
Yep.
Like, swinging 3 a turn is pretty good, actually, especially when you're at infinite life.
Exactly, man. Giver runes is like the white Thoughtseize. It's like, you have to use your removal on this, or I know you don't have it. And at some point, if you don't have it and you're not going to spend your card on it, you're going to take a beating from it in one way or another. Like, you're just going to sneak some shit through, or, protect your creatures in times of need. So really good, man. I would definitely pay attention to that. At least write that stuff down. If not, snap that up with Court of Calling. And if you're planning on running Creatures Toolbox, do not run Aladamri's Call. Trash card. Run Court of Calling. Way better. Way
Court
better
of
card,
Calling.
man.
Great pick.
So,
hey.
But anyways, all right, we're just gonna. Do we just want to dial right in here?
Yeah, man.
All right.
This is how we do.
Can you guys guess who our special guest is?
Now is your chance. Guess. Guess. Before he says anything, can the people listening guess who our special guest is this week?
Well, let's say hello to him. It's Leif
Ericksson. Nice to talk to you, gentlemen.
Hey, man! Thanks for joining us. We're live right now. Well, not live, but we're just going with it, man. We're just dialing you up. If you need a second to get ready, dude, don't worry about it.
No problem at all. I'm ready.
Sweet, dude.
So, part of the reason why we finished our episode last week, and we talked a little bit about how the current pandemic may impact, well, obviously it has impacted Magic play in a live sense, and it has affected all of us personally, not being able to go to our local game store. Beyond being a great Magic player and a long-time Magic aficionado, Leif also has some very interesting credentials and credibility to lend to a conversation like that. So, Leif, tell us about yourself, and why do you think I called you thinking about this conversation?
Well, my name is Leif Ericksson. I started playing Magic in the winter of 1994 when a kid in my small elementary school brought an issue of Inquest magazine into 5th grade. Took a big break in the 90s and aughts, and when I moved to Bangor, I stopped by a little place called the Game Citadel to play Settlers of Catan because I didn't know anybody. Never been to Bangor, from the mid-coast of Maine, never been to Bangor. And they were playing Commander. And I said, damn, this game still exists? That is great. And it was like I got another hit of heroin, and I was back in all the way.
Dude, a buddy of mine used to say, he's like, you don't ever stop playing Magic, you just stop having people to play Magic with. Like,
100%. And the thing was, when I played, there were no formats, there was no whatever. There was like, I literally played games with 20 mountains and 40 lightning bolts.
Of course, the best deck ever built.
Before they changed the rules and were like 4 up. And the other thing is, I have a background in history. I'm a history teacher now. I have a master's in education. I also have a master's in political science. And so we like to talk politics at the shop. It's not necessarily a politics thing, but I have a deep historical background. And watching this pandemic play out is very interesting in comparison to the ones that have happened every couple of years over the last 2 decades. We're part of that fear that we are very overdue.
No kidding,
for
man.
A big pandemic.
So,
and I don't necessarily know that this is going to be the one, but it's on everybody's mind, and that's one of the reasons we take such big precautions.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, we had this conversation, whether Leif would be with us in the room or to call in, and I think we made the right call. Leif has recently been blessed with an expansion in the family.
Yeah, man. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Woohoo.
Yeah, so another second little girl, Harper Eowyn Ericksson, and she is happy and healthy, and we want to keep her that way.
Round of applause for Leif. Let's get it going, man.
Thank you.
That's cool, man. You're gonna have a house full of ladies over there, man. That's
yeah, there's gonna be a lot of talking.
Yep. So at this point, Leif's like, "Damn it, you're right. I should have come over, escaped for a bit."
Well, I definitely wanted to, but it was just the right choice for my family right now.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
pulling your leg, man. It's completely understandable. The social distancing 101 right here. This is us doing it, setting the example. Leif Ericksson.
And I just want you to know, Leif, even though Mike and I are in proximity, we are sanitizing our throats with
some good old whiskey.
Maker's Mark.
That's right.
Oh, there you go. That's the way to do it.
Make your mark with
Now,
Maker's Mark.
I understand that this is not quite a high enough proof to actually kill anything, so I'm going to drink twice as much.
Yes.
Right.
Quantity.
Exactly. It's not a high enough proof if you're only having a little bit at a time. If you're really a pound in it, come on.
That's right, man. You got to stay healthy in these times.
So we were overdue. The last pandemic. I mean, we've had lots of viral outbreaks and a few of these actual different strands of coronaviruses. But my understanding is we haven't seen anything really like this in over 100 years.
Wow.
In almost exactly 100 years. The last big one was called the Spanish flu, which actually was a version of the H1N1 flu that we had a few years ago. And it began with U.S. soldiers at a military base in Kansas, even though it's called the Spanish flu. And because of the troops flowing in and out of World War I, and then everybody going home from the war almost immediately, after the flu had begun, it spread worldwide. It killed more than 100 million people.
Jeez, man. It's almost really hard to believe that we're seeing something like this right now. I watched a video on YouTube the other day because this is what I do when I try to go to sleep at night. I'm like, I could watch one more YouTube video, right? And this one popped up of the worst pandemics of all time or whatnot. And of course, they talked about the Spanish flu or whatnot, talked about, a whole bunch of other ones, but COVID-19 made the list. I'm not sure if they were just playing to the current audience, but I'm like, it's really crazy to think that we're living in that era right now. And I think that might be why it's hard for people to wrap their head around it. You still have some people that are like, oh, no big deal. And it's, I get you. It feels really weird that we are in one of those eras right now.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how many people. I know that, for instance, H1N1 killed about 525,000 people 2 or 3 years ago, which is a large amount. But in terms of some of those historic flus, or in terms of this seasonal flu, is almost nothing. So it's really interesting to see what's going to happen in the United States now. We passed Italy in terms of total cases today.
We have, I looked an hour ago, we have also passed China. We are now number one, according to John Hopkins.
So
the U.S., we do it big around here.
Yeah. I mean, we're not looking at a Black Death or level, which is 30 to 50% of Europe's population, or a Justinian plague, which killed approximately 50% of the Eastern Roman Empire at a moment when they were a hair's breadth away from restoring the Roman Empire, and 476 would not be taught in history books. And all of a sudden, they were carrying people out of Constantinople by the wheelbarrow full.
That's so nuts,
so we're not going to have anything like that. But it's still really scary, and it's also really scary because we have a very, in a historical perspective, we have a relatively old population. People live quite a bit longer than they did before. And so we have a very vulnerable population in terms of healthcare facilities, in terms of nursing homes and things like that.
Word. It's really weird, man. Yeah, this one is attacking it's the older generation is more vulnerable to it. Dude, wasn't there one in history that was the opposite? That was if you were younger with a very strong immune system, that it would the stronger your immune system was, the more you'd overreact and make you just go nuts. And was that the Spanish flu?
A couple of times, and that has happened a couple of times, and that was one of the major pieces of the Spanish flu that was so devastating about it. We're talking about it got started amongst young, healthy soldiers at a military base and spread around the world. And they've actually, I was looking at some documentation maybe a couple weeks ago, and it was talking about that they figured out why it killed young people. So there's actually, there's obviously many different types of flu, and they fall into, and I'm not an expert on this, but what this article from a major university is talking about is that they fall into two categories. They're like a type 1 and a type 2. And if you get a type 1, you have additional resistance against other type 1 flus. But what they've now discovered is you actually have less resistance, more susceptibility to a type 2 flu.
Really?
And that they looked at younger people who were in regions affected by a type 1 flu between 15 and 25 years before the Spanish flu. So we're talking about the 1890s when they were younger. They got the type 1. Spanish flu was a type 2. And so what they're looking at is of those 100 million people that it killed, a significant portion were those young people, which was why it was so devastating and so, they just didn't understand. How could this flu, which, like we're having right now, people are like, it's just a flu. You're right. It is just a flu, but in the Spanish flu's case, it's killing people who are healthy as a horse.
Yeah.
And they just don't understand. And so now 100 years later, we've come to some potential understanding on that. But, that 100 years ago, that was something they could have never imagined.
So what do you think about after this is all said and done, right? Like when the day comes where they're like, okay, you can go back to your jobs and go back out and feel free to socialize. We flattened the curve. What comes after this whole thing? Like, economy wise and all of that. Like what is going to come next based on what's happened in the past?
Mm-hmm. Well, that is a very difficult question. As I mentioned, we've had an incident similar to this just about every 2 years since I was in high school. SARS, H1N1, Zika, all these different things. Obviously not necessarily a flu, but often a flu-type disease. And so we're having it again, and we really have a difficult time dealing with it. And so what comes next? I guess myself as a relatively young person or middle-aged person now with 2 young children, the big thing I think about is the economic consequences. Because the economic consequences of this, I think, will far outweigh, and that's not to undermine the death total, but in the death toll in the United States, H1N1 was 11,000. Let's say this is 15 to 20,000 people. That is a lot of people. It's devastating to individual families. But the economic damage that we have done to people is going to run into trillions of dollars. Never mind the interest we're going to have to pay on all this debt that we're continuing to rack up to try to soften the blow.
Huh. No, I know with the Spanish flu, it was sometime after that the Great Depression happened. It was like, 15 years after that? Or after
10 years. 10 years.
10 years. Okay. So were they at all related? Like, was that, did the Spanish flu have some big effect on that or no?
No, it really did not.
Okay.
It did not have a significant impact. As a matter of fact, the 20s were known as the Roaring 20s. Especially in the United States, in many cases because of the type of policies that they did in the 20s, which we now do, which is to spend while the sun is shining. And they reached the whirlwind in 1920.
Oh.
Did we lose Leif?
We will rectify that. Just 1 second.
That's so crazy to think about, though. Like, it's good. This is a good pause because I can digest all of this cool stuff right now.
Well, and I think that was a great question to ask. Hey, sorry about that. So we're just we accidentally lost the call there for a second, but Mike was just taking a minute to digest. A lot of people have thought about a connection between those two events, the Spanish flu and the Great Depression. And one of the things that you said there that was interesting to me, because one of the things that I always found fascinating about the Black Death, the original plague, was that after the plague, things were pretty good for a lot of people.
The Black Death actually had some very significant positive economic impacts. I've actually taught this in several classes with students to help them understand that.
Oh, this is cool.
Because the power of labor. I mean, one of the things that we have a problem with, and one of the things that we're trying to deal with in the United States with mass immigration and with the globalization, with sending the manufacturing jobs elsewhere, is that, labor has a minimal value, especially unless you have an extremely expensive degree next to your name. Anyone who's watching this who has applied for a job that they're eminently qualified for, but may not meet the minimal qualifications to apply, may understand what I'm talking about here. And so in the Black Death, because so many people died, all of a sudden, many of the proto-capitalists, I guess we would call them, the landowners, things like that, were saying to their workers, okay, keep working. As a matter of fact, I'd like it if you did more since all these people have died. And a lot of people left. They went to the cities, they went elsewhere to seek higher wages because now their labor had value.
No kidding.
And as a matter of fact, in England, there's a considerable amount of legislation just after the plague or when the plague was slowing down, where the landowners actually got the government to try to step in and say, you could not leave. Because England had a history of primarily free peasantry.
Right.
And
the people that did all the work, most of them died. So the ones that are left, we need to keep them here.
Yeah.
Right. And so they tried to kind of move from free peasantry to actually more of a serf system, which is where you are free, but you cannot leave.
Wow.
You are free to work for us.
And
we are free to pay you, but you cannot leave.
And also at the same time, weren't resources that were scarce, if you talk about food and housing and all of those things, became a lot more plentiful per capita.
Yes, absolutely. And it also spurred significant technological advancement, because when you do not have enough workers to grind the grain, you will invest in windmills. You will invest in technological solutions.
That's a really good point, too. And if you think about it, I could see that happening after this, right? Because think about how many people have to work at home right now. And like before, as of 2-3 weeks ago, most places didn't really have that on the ready to do. To be like, oh, yeah, we have to send the entire workforce home. What are you going to do? You know what I mean?
As a matter of fact, a huge number of employers went out of their way over the last decade or so to say, no, your job really can't be done at home.
Right. Yeah, so that's big. I can see that leading to a big advancement right there. Just the fact that, all right, yep, now it has to be done. And, we got to figure out a solution for this so that on call or on point, you can just work from anywhere. That's a good point, man.
Right. I 100% agree. I mean, it will have some benefits for those who have the skills and capability to gain advantage from that.
So speaking of those that have the ability to gain advantage, we are a magic-focused podcast by and large. And what do you think about the tanking of card prices right now because nobody can play in paper?
That's what I was thinking a lot about just in the run-up to calling in on your podcast. Much like stocks, this is a time for those who have the ability to get in on the ground floor. If there are some cards you want to invest in, you got to be very careful. Wizards is very reprint happy right now. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, let's say you said, you know what, the prices on those masterpieces. I've been looking at some masterpiece swords recently for a Stoneforge Mystic deck. Boy, those prices look good. They do. They look great. There's not a lot of buying and selling going on right now, but there's a great possibility for a secret lair expeditions and secret lair masterpieces at any time.
Man.
So
thank God for that reserve list.
Yeah, to get back to what you were saying, I think this is a great time for some low-level Magic investing, I think a lot about the Allurin that you guys talked about last week and those kind of cards. Something like Allurin is similar to, why birthing pod got banned in Modern. Birthing pod got banned. It was a good deck. It got banned because it was a card that, as the cards that got printed got better, it was always getting better. Allurin, same kind of thing. As cards, creatures that are 3 or less, which now we got like a Heliod or an Uro 3 or less, can be hit with Allurin, or can be cast with Allurin. And the only big difference is Allurin is on the reserve list.
Yeah, they can't reprint that, man. They can't just be like, "Yep, this is a good card and we recognize it. Now here's 5 million more copies of it." Like, so
Right.
do you think those are the ones they hit right now as like the reserve list cards that are good, usable, and that are kind of either stable or dropping in price?
Yeah, I do. I think that there are definitely some non-reserve list cards that you could look at, but your margins are going to be lower, and you're putting yourself in for a lot of risk. So it's difficult because your floor on those reserve list cards could be quite a bit higher, but you're not running the huge risk. I mean, we've got what's the thing coming out in the summer? Team Up or
Jumpstart.
Yeah.
We've got Jumpstart. Then we've got Legendary Masters.
Right.
Both
so
of
many
which I'm
reprints.
very much looking forward to. I think they're going to be amazing products. Mystery Boosters looks to me to have been very successful, but as a Magic investor, you need to be very, very careful.
Yeah.
Very wary about reprints.
Absolutely.
And it's a shame because I think you're right. The safety net on the reserve list is great. The floor is higher, but you know that you're not going to take a big loss. But like with aggressive stock trading, if you buy into modern staples, and this is my thought right now, is that modern staples are more plentiful to obtain, cheaper to obtain, and if we come back and Magic kicks back up into a high play pattern, they probably have the most room to grow because it's a more played format. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I 100% agree. I do think that one part of Magic investing has always got to be looking at, what are those modern staples? What are those cards that could come back into standard? Like you look at the Shocklands. The Shocklands were very high for a long time. Then they went down with Return to Ravnica. Then they kind of stabilized at a relatively low price. And then because they were in standard, even though they had a huge reprint last year, their price right now is excellent. But a year from now, it will probably start going down again because they'll be out of standard. So you need to look at what are some cards in Zendikar. What are some cards? Let's say that this has, to some extent, blown over by the end of the summer. So what are some, if we're talking about non-reserve list cards, what are some cards that could be in Zendikar, or what are some cards that could be enabled by mechanics in Zendikar? That's also a great investment opportunity.
Damn.
Now, here's a question, and Mike, chime in on this as well.
Yeah.
We get a vaccine, the world goes back to normal. Everybody's played for 2.5 months or 3 months on Arena, on Moto. How strongly does Paper Magic come back? And how does the battle between Modern and Pioneer shake out?
Well, that's a question that I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer. I mean, I'd love to talk about it with you guys.
Yeah, that's all.
I'm unable to play Pioneer right now. I follow it, but it's just I don't have the time. And Modern, I think part of it is what does Wizards want?
Right. I ain't got time for that either. I ain't got time for that either,
Okay.
Leif. Who's got time for these friggin' Thassa's oracles coming down and winning you the game? Ain't nobody got time for that. I got time. I got time for that kind of shit. I'd rather slam a Heliod down than I just cheated into play with a Court of Calling. That's what I
am going to spell Queller an Inverter of Truth, though, and it's going to be so good.
Yes. Yes.
And so
they're going to already be scooping up their debt. And I'm going to say, hold on just a second. And they're going to say, no. all your removal is sorcery speed. And I say, oh, I didn't say anything about removal. You hold your horse.
I would like to exile that spell on the stack.
Yeah.
So unconsciously, I think you guys just answered my question, actually.
Dude, yeah.
You didn't talk about modern.
I just did.
Well, the interesting thing is, what does Wizards want?
Yeah.
Because it looks to me like what Wizards want is they want Pioneer to be the new Modern, they want Modern to be the new Legacy, and they want Legacy and Vintage to just go away. Please stop asking us about Legacy. Legacy? I don't even know what that is. What's that? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I guess some people play it on the kitchen table. That's nice.
That's interesting, man. Yeah, that is a big question though. What will Wizards want? And we should start thinking about that right now to make some investments and make some good choices. Yeah. Good choices right now.
I do think, and this is a conversation that we had in the shop, a month or two ago. I do think I would not be surprised to see the reserve list be weakened in the next 5 years.
Yep. Do you think they'll do that if they're trying to shoo away Legacy and Vintage though? If they've committed to the game plan of like, all right, you know what, forget it. Like we're just gonna forget about this format. Do you think they would do that then? Is it more of a reason for them to do it?
I think you have to remember, and this is something that we've talked about many times. Wizards of the Coast is not an independent entity. They are not allowed to just be successful. Hasbro does not care that you had a good quarter last quarter. You need to have a good quarter every quarter, and you need to be growing, not profitable. You need to be growing your income stream. So at some point with all these reprints and all this stuff, Hasbro is going to say, listen, we're willing to bite the bullet. We know we can win in court. We did reserve list cards 10 years ago, and nobody batted an eye. So we will be able to say, if it really mattered, they should have batted an eye last time, and they did not. And they'll break the reserve list. Now, I pray to God that they do something like what was suggested at Star City last week, which is what we had talked about, which was a gradual breaking of the reserve list, very cautious, primarily focused on getting some cards into some older formats. But I just don't know.
And they should definitely do it with like preserving the integrity of the rarity of those cards too, right? Like if they run some numbers or run some statistics and they figure out, hey, you know what? Only 600 Black Lotuses exist in the entire world. Like, you know what I mean? At that point, they're like, okay, maybe we print 600 more. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's likely not going to kill the value of the card.
You just broke my brain because I'm thinking, imagine they release some normal set and they say, okay, well, we're going to print 100,000 boxes of this set, whatever a fall release normally is. And in those 100,000 boxes, there are 600 Black Lotuses.
Oh, man.
You would never see a product sell out faster.
Nope.
I was not playing at the time, but I'm sure, Mike, you're familiar with what happened with original Zendikar, where they took cards out of the Wizards' vault.
Yeah, they say that. I wonder if they actually did reprint them. Do you really think like they took them out of some vault they got kicking around over there? They're just like, yeah, let's just go reprint these.
The only reason I believe that story or believe in the existence of a vault is that an employee at Wizards actually got caught having stolen a very significant number of cards from said vault.
What? Wow.
And went to jail for a not inconsiderate amount of time.
Dude, yeah.
And I would say, like, was it last year's Vegas that they actually had some like beta drafts? Like they pulled some product out of the dusty back corner of Wizards somewhere to have some really cool events. So I don't doubt that they have kept some amount of every product they've ever made for perpetuity's sake.
Yeah, I think there's a video online somewhere of someone pulling a beta Swords to Plowshares out of a old Zendikar pack.
The other thing is, you want to talk about unlimited or revised, there is what we might call a reasonable number of those cards in existence. Beta and especially Alpha, Alpha, they were caught completely flat-footed. They went to Gen Con in '93 thinking they'd sell some cards. There were some card games out there, not really a trading card game. Maybe tap into that fantasy / trading card market from baseball cards and stuff like that. And it blew up. And that's why there's only, for instance, I think you're right on, Mike, there's maybe 500 Alpha Black Lotuses that were ever printed.
Oh yeah. For Alpha, I think for sure there's a lot less out there than 500. But that's what I mean. If they ever do this, let's break the pact on this on the no reprint list. I think they kind of got to approach it like that. Hey, by the way, we printed 3,000 of them originally. What if we just print 3,000 again or something? You know what I mean? There's far more Magic players out there. They're not going to be able to. Not everyone's going to have one still. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you put more out there.
We promise to do a reasonable amount, and here is our definition of reasonable amount every year.
Yep.
And here's a year's notice.
And here's a year's notice, right? I mean, we're kind of getting off track. This is wild speculation, but I just think it's very interesting. I think it has a lot of implications for some reserve list cards, because there are quite a few cards, and we've seen this in other things. You have a card that's like a Memphis Bobble or something like that, not obviously a reserve list card, but a card that has a significant amount of value at the time because it was not printed widely.
Right.
There are a lot of reserve list cards who's because the Star City article was talking about Alibaba. Alibaba is an awesome card. It just basically says, you can't go below 1 life as long as she's on the battlefield. That got reprinted, a functional reprint, in some ways even a better reprint last year with Fortune.
We got Brad over here singing fucking Alibaba and
the 40 Thieves.
Prince Ali, handsome is he, Alibaba.
I mean, I was thinking of Shazarahad and the Thousand Night Stories, but, I'm a super nerd, so what can I say?
Exactly. You went to the real world, and we went to film and movie. Film and cartoon.
Look, I had my brain blown by all these, historical facts you're saying over here, Leif. You've broke my brain. I can't digest anymore in my head, so I have to act childish and sing Disney songs.
Maybe that's why everyone tells me to be quiet. They can't handle it. I guess that must be what it is.
So, I appreciate the fact that you've listened to a lot of the episodes. You referred back to what we were talking about last week when we talked about Aloran and
that's cool, man.
City of Solitude. What are some of our segments, Leif?
Well, there's always the pick this shit up.
Snap this shit up.
Snap this shit up.
Hey.
Write this shit down. Is a good one.
Nice.
Yep.
So,
unfortunately, I thought to myself, I need to have lists of these things, but I did not put together a list.
He saw where you're going with that.
That's okay.
Okay, how about this then, Leif? Weigh in on one of my picks this week. We were just talking about this on the half of the podcast before we called in. What do you think of Court of Calling?
Court of Calling is an interesting card. It's an amazing card. It's gotten some competition. We have Eldonri's Call. We have Once Upon a Time.
I can't wait till you hear the first part of this podcast. I can't wait.
There have been some alternatives printed. Cord is interesting because I think we're going to see a Cord reprint.
Sweet.
So, but the question is, and this goes back to exactly what we were talking about earlier. Cord is a card whose price may actually benefit, at least in the short term, from a visitation in standard.
Interesting.
I don't know what it's at right now, but if you think about $8. So let's say it's $8. You get it for $8. People are like, why? What? You don't have 4? And you're like, oh, I need your 16 copies. You pick them up. It goes into standard. Yes. It has a lot more, but that card gets played like crazy.
Oh, man.
For 2 years.
Yeah. It did go down to like $3-4 at one point when it was in standard, which, I guess if it does get reprinted into standard anytime soon, I could see it going back down to that. But,
well, it will.
Oh, yeah.
Let's say it got printed in Core, Teferi Core 2021.
Mm-hmm.
It could be $3 or $4. Let's say next winter. But you give it next summer. It's in Euro decks. It's in all this stuff. You've got the Goose to accelerate your mana. All these things. You're going to have this monster set coming up where you're going to get to create monsters to your desire using pretty much every keyword that exists in Magic, if the rumors are true. Chord of Calling, like let's say there are 2 of the base monsters that are green that you can get with Chord and then use your other cards to mutate them or whatever it is that you do. Chord becomes a 4 of in all those decks.
Oh, for
It's
sure.
instant speed. Your mana dorks and your smaller creatures can be useful. I mean, it's $10, $15
Oh, yeah.
in a standard set where Uro and the Goose and that stuff exists.
Oh, for sure, man.
And if you look at like Absorb is printed in standard.
Yeah.
But when people found out that Absorb was going to be playable, the OG copies of Absorb skyrocketed.
Way high. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Dude.
that's another thing we didn't really talk about, but I think you're 100% right, Brad. It has a huge impact, which is, and I 100%, I'm a person who would prefer, I never was this way. I never cared about foils. I never cared about the OG. But as I've developed my collection, as I've got some pet decks, and Brad, I think you can sympathize on that. Got to have the foil version. Got to have the right art.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember we were down at a tournament in Saco. I had my 4 Thalia foils. And I said, oh, this is awesome. I got a nice foil when they were reprinted. And then I saw those GP promo Thalias. And I said, mine are garbage.
The WMCQ art is nasty.
What would also make price of Chord of Calling go up is if everybody who runs these Creature Toolbox decks decides to stop being stupid and run Chord of Calling instead of Eladamri's Call.
That would certainly help your case for the price of that card.
But
what would
as someone who doesn't necessarily run 1 or 2 color decks, I like a 3 color deck. I like the versatility. I think with fetch lands, especially in Modern, and you've got Fabled Passage and Prismatic Vista and all these things, our mana is really well constructed for a 3-color format. I love the versatility of an Eldonry Call.
You know what you can't? You know what you can't cast when you have infinite mana off Devoted Druid? Eladamri's Call! but you know what you can cast?
You got me there, Mike. You got me there.
So,
I'm bow to your infinite wisdom.
I bow to his infinite mana. So, I know we've only had Leif on the call for about 35, 40 minutes, but we don't want to run too long. We want to keep our listeners engaged. So, I want to point out that another one of our frequent listeners, Tech4 in the comments on YouTube, Andy, hit me up this week and said, all right, what do you think about Karn? We've talked about Karn since like episode 1. I don't even know.
I think he's
1 or 2.
He's a recurring visitor on our Snap This Shit Up list. Someday it'll happen.
Because it's not getting played in paper. When he sent me that message, I was like, well, let me look. I haven't looked at Karn. We found him a playset at $3.50 a piece.
What? Yeah, snap him up, dude. What are you waiting for?
Snap, like triple snap. Put it on the credit card.
Yep.
Get them.
Yep.
And that was what I said. Now, the thing that I'm wondering, and this is a hard thing. So last week, Mike, you were telling people, if there's cards that you're looking for, it is on you to watch their trends. So I watch TCG Player because people do compete on there. And what will happen is you'll notice a trend of, are people trying to beat the lowest price, or are people trying to get a higher price? So sometimes you'll see a bunch of new postings, but they'll all be slightly higher because people think that the card is worth more or that they can get more for it. And then sometimes people think, oh, I gotta dump these cards off. I'm going to try and beat the lowest price on TCG. So
where the hell is that coming from? Oh.
I think with those copies that were $350, they were just about the lowest ones on there, and somebody put a play set, 4 copies, $350 each, and he scooped them up.
Yep.
But I would say to anybody that doesn't have cards, I'd be looking at TCG or eBay this weekend. you might get them for $3 a piece if people are really just uncertain about when they're going to play Paper Magic again. And
Yeah. I do think one thing that is really important when you are investing is you really need to think about, where am I financially? And when you're looking at individual cards, what is this card going to be at in the future?
Yeah.
Because you need to get a margin. And something that people are always forgetting about and really not giving its proper due is your time has value. And the ancillary costs, the taxes, the shipping fees, the eBay fees, the TCG player fees, all that stuff, also, you need to calculate that stuff in. So you need to think to yourself, what is a good price for a Karn? Can it be played in 4 of in a deck? It's played in Legacy or Vintage or other things. What can it do? What is its power level? That's why investing in something like Magic is so hard. Because you look at the card and you think to yourself, okay, it's $350. Is $350 a good price or not? What is the market telling me?
Yeah.
But you also look at something like Karn and you say to yourself, barring major reprints, this card will be an element in major decks.
Oh, yeah.
For a long time.
Yeah,
this
people
is
thought...
going to be the kind of card, that's going to be $10.
Oh, yeah. People thought it was going to lose a lot of value when we lost Mycosynth Lattice. But, dude, you see it in more deck variants now, than ever before. And I mean, you might not see it being played more than ever before, but it's in a lot of different decks still, as something that's very important. I saw it. Doofer was running a Creatures Toolbox version that had Karn in it, so he could tutor Walking Ballista out of the board.
So I have some breaking...
Right. I was just going to say the same thing. Or he also uses it to potentially tutor an ensnaring bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, it is that's the key to that card and why it matters is its versatility.
I have some breaking news.
Especially
breaking news.
Breaking news. Through Hipsters of the Coast, Wizards has announced that there will be a delay in the tabletop release for Ikoria, Lair of Behemoths.
Ooh.
Wow.
So does that mean
it is the first ever delay of a release in the States for a Magic product like that?
Wow.
That is insane. So does that mean that the sets that are currently in standards, they stay in standard for longer now because the new set hasn't dropped? Or
I don't think, I mean, I don't know. Geez. I don't know if they will let that impact rotation, but instead of releasing in mid-April, it's going to release in mid-May.
Wow.
That is some news.
That's huge, man.
We will thank Mr. Orange, Evan Irwin of Magic Mics, for posting that on Twitter.
Word, man.
Okay, one last news item that I want to talk about.
Yep.
Channel Fireball. Channel Fireball events going down like a fireball because they can't have any events, has decided to just basically sell you promo product directly with their Magic Fest in a box.
Oh, man.
Have you seen this, Leif?
I have not seen that. That sounds potentially very spicy.
Potentially.
Mike is not impressed.
I'm not impressed. I am not impressed.
Yeah, I would need to know a lot more about, what's in the product, etc. And the thing I guess that would worry me is a similar thing to the secret layers. You guys are a financial podcast. You're not necessarily looking for the cards that are reasonably priced. So when they give you a GP promo that is can be generously called reasonably priced, that's not what you're looking for.
So Brad just was spending some time bringing up the list over here. Did you want to run down through it? And
Absolutely. So the base model here is $49.99, and they send you a Magic Fest in a box. It comes with a mystery playmat. You don't know what the playmat is. It comes with one foil promo path.
Textless, full art.
Foil path. One non-foil full art. Textless path. One non-foil promo soul ring. one of all 5 foil GP basics, one of those freebie deck boxes you always get when you go to one of these events, and a pack of sleeves is $50.
Wow. I would say, you think about it, you look at it, and you say to yourself, what do I think that promo Soul Ring is going to be in the future? And I guess I would say, geez, it almost seems like that pays for the pack right there.
Maybe.
So if you wanted to select your playmat, you could pay $59. So $10 more gets you the same package, except you can choose which playmat you get.
So they're sending you the bad ones that no one's buying in that $49.
Potentially, yeah.
And the $50 one.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't need another playmat, but if you went to a GP and bought if you signed up for the GP to get the playmat, that's $20 or something, right? If the foil path ends up worth $10 or $20, the non-foil path ends up being worth $5 to $10. The non-foil Soul Ring, that's a promo Soul Ring, $5, $10, $20 maybe.
Yeah. I mean, no doubt it's probably worth what you're paying for it. I'm like, it seems to me like you got a whole bunch of extra product here.
And that's it.
And you're just trying to sell it.
Leif was right when he said his first instinct was this is like Secret Lair. It is direct product.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's interesting. I just have mixed feelings about it. It's like I said. I mean, it's probably worth what they're charging for it.
All right, Leif.
I would want to think about Channel Fireball's financial situation. They are a large organization, but they're dedicated to selling Magic cards on a regular basis, to supporting a huge number of events. They got the contract for the GPs just a couple of years ago, the exclusive contract. They've got a lot of money in this. I would be concerned that Channel Fireball, I don't know if they're going to close, but they might be getting maybe they're just getting revenue. Maybe they're getting needed revenue to keep the doors open.
Maybe.
So let me run you over the top of the line, the Lexus, what's that fancy electric car from California there? Tesla. This is the Tesla edition.
Tesla?
This is the Commander edition. It is $169. I get a kick that they chose 69 because I'm like 12 years old. Okay. In the Commander edition, they're hooking 4 people up. They're saying, you're going to have a pod. So you get 4 random prize wall items. Who the hell knows what that is? Could be dice, could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
4 mystery playmats. 4 foil full art.
Foil paths.
Textless. Thank you. 4 non-foil paths. So you're getting 8 total Path to Exiles in these full art textless paths. You get 4 sets. You get 4 of each GP basic. So you're getting 20 foil basics, 4 deck boxes, 4 packs of sleeves, 4 of the non-foil Soul Rings, and a foil promo Soul Ring, along with some assorted artist, vendor, and sponsor items. I'm guessing stickers and who knows what. So 8 paths, 5 Soul Rings, 4 playmats, 4 deck boxes, sleeves, and some other stuff.
$170.
That is a lot of amazing stuff, but geez, I don't know if you can justify $170. But
well, it's just one of those things. They're always going to make something for the whales, the people that are going to spend the money.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to, like, every time somebody sees my textless full art GP lightning bolts, they're like, oh, those are hot. They're probably worth more than I want to trade for. And I'm like, no, dude, they're like $10 a piece because everybody's got them.
We just had this conversation the other week.
So I don't think, in a year, everyone will have these full art paths. I don't think that they're going to be $50 paths, but I can't imagine them being less than $10. I can't imagine. So it's interesting.
Yeah, the big thing is right now too, and like the timing of it. Do you think many people are going to be rushing out to pay like $170, probably 180 with tax, and I don't know if this includes shipping or not, but like, you know what I mean? It's one of those things. I'm not sure
People are
how many
strapped
people.
for cash right now. People are worried about toilet paper.
Exactly. You could buy a lot. You could buy 2 rolls of toilet paper with that. Today's market prices.
Is that where you got all your money to be investing in Magic? You've been swapping out toilet paper recently?
I don't know. Did you see the video I put on Facebook?
I did not.
Oh, if you're looking for that good shit, I got you.
Original, man.
Oh, yeah.
Just Brad
Kayla,
walking
my
down the
wife
street.
reminded me that I did see that and showed it to her. It was very
Well, I think that's going to wrap us up for today. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think so too, man. This is great. Leif, you're the man for joining us, brother. Like, thanks
thank you very much for having me, John.
Anytime, man. Thanks for the good insights, and it seems like we're kind of on the same page with some of our thoughts too, with investing, and making sure A, you have the money to do it, and B, you're making the right choices. So, yeah, really good, man.
Definitely.
As always.
All right. Well, have a wonderful evening, gentlemen.
You too, sir. We'll talk to you hopefully sooner rather than later.
Hopefully, I'll see you at the shop.
That would be nice.
Right.
Peace out.
All right. Bye-bye.
Peace, brother.
So, as always, Snapcast Podcast is available on iTunes, Google Store, YouTube. Hit us up on Facebook. If you're not one of our local friends, feel free to send me a message. Brad O'Brien, Mike Cooley. Anything else you want to say before we go out the door?
Guys, stay safe out there. Spread the podcast and not the virus. Tune in next week. We'll be here with some more words to say. Yeah. Started off right, brother.
Stay safe. Gotta sanitize the lung biscuit.
Yeah. Man, that shit goes down hard.
I don't know what you're talking about.